Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Hi, folks. How you doing? I've been looking at the election results in even greater detail, and I'm here to tell you that the defeat the Democrat Party suffered this election, and you add it to 2014 and the midterms in 2010, it's even more devastating than I thought yesterday and last Friday. And I've spent a lot of time delving into it. It's just massive how shellacked the Democrat Party is. And it was not just, the election on last Tuesday, a week ago today, that was, you could call it the icing on the cake of a nuclear bomb, I don't care what, but even before last Tuesday, the Democrat Party was disappearing. And it just... it just amazes me the illusion that was created that hid that from everybody, even though it was right in front of us. We knew it. We knew they were losing seats in the midterm elections, but because of Obama's approval rating and the illusion created by the media that the Democrats were ascending, we were convinced to ignore what we were watching. We were convinced to ignore what we saw. But I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm going to stay focused on this because this defeat, do you know how many states in this country now have a Republican governor, a Democrat governor, Democrat legislature? Take a guess. How many states? There are 50, for those of you, not 57. There are 50 states. How many of those states have a Democrat governor and Democrat state legislature? The number is 5. However, it's actually 4. In Connecticut, there is a tie in the state Senate there. And the tiebreaker goes to the Democrats in that case. But in real numbers, there are 4 states that have a legitimate, without using a tiebreaker, Democrat governor and Democrat state legislature. And they are Rhode Island and Hawaii, both states you can put in a thimble, and Oregon and California. That's it. Connecticut is number 5 if you count the tiebreaker. Now, what constituted this defeat, or what led to it? The Democrats are doing their post-mortems on this right now, and folks, 2002 is repeating itself, and the media is in full-fledged BS mode. Remember the story we had yesterday that the Trump campaign had no idea that they had to staff the West Wing? Remember the story we had yesterday that Trump had no idea that 4,000 jobs had to be filled, and that Trump was going to rely on Obama to help? Do you realize that story is a totally made-up lie? We're just going to have to start assuming this when every story in the Drive-By media, and the New York Times has now come out and said that they essentially are going to be the voice of the opposition. They are once again throwing journalism aside, throwing it overboard in favor of being the loyal opposition. We're just going to have to steel ourselves here. And the default reaction to any media story that has anything incredulously stupid, dumb, or negative about Trump is to not believe it, folks. That has to become our default position. The default position cannot be, wow, that's incredible. Wow, man, if that's true, and then go look for it. The default position, to be intellectually honest with ourselves, has to be rejection, because it is still in full swing. The media is doing everything they can to cast the Trump election as a mistake, as a temper tantrum, as an oddity, and it is anything but that. It is substantive. This was an ideological election. They're trying to say it was a change election. And by change election, they mean the voters just wanted something different. And it's a cyclical thing, the analysts tell us. Yeah, they just got tired of seeing the same faces and they want to go a different direction. And don't you believe that either. This was the continuation of the people of this country rejecting liberalism and its sponsors, who happen to be the Democrat Party. There is no if, and, or but about it. There's no maybe. There is no possibly. It is a definite repudiation and rejection of everything liberal, including President Obama, who I watched a little bit of his press conference today with the Prime Minister in Greece. I got to be very careful here. Our president is in a sad, sad state of denial. And if you were here yesterday, you heard me describe the precarious balance that our nation finds itself in the next 2 months. Because we have a president who has been rejected fully and thoroughly, who is in denial about it, does not accept that. In fact, he thinks that he was not even on the ballot. He thinks that what he has done and what he stands for is not even on the ballot, that Hillary didn't work hard enough, that right-wing media didn't get the facts straight, and that the Republicans lied their teeth off, and so it didn't have anything to do with him. I mean, the denial here is overwhelming. But it may be that we want that because of the precarious balance we have these next 2 months. I mean, we have a thoroughly rejected party that still controls all the levers of power. So it's walking a bit of a tightrope here. I'll play the audio sound bites of Obama coming up, and you can judge yourself. But I just want to, again, establish and have it said without any doubt whatsoever, this was an ideological election, and it was the third such ideological election where liberalism was repudiated and sent packing. And by liberalism, I mean the policies of Obama that were rooted in the expansion and growth of government. That's what was sent packing, and that is ideological. If it has anything to do with big government, trade deals, Obamacare, immigration, whatever it was that the Democrat Party was seen as standing for was totally repudiated. Liberalism was rejected like never before, and this needs to be taught. There are people on the winning side, people who voted for Trump, who need to hear. It's a teachable opportunity, a learning opportunity, teachable moment. Has to be done very carefully because most people are not by nature ideological. One of my often stated, not complaints, but if I could change anything, it would be a massive education about liberalism so we wouldn't have to go through this ever again because it ends up always being rejected. Woodrow Wilson was rejected, FDR after a while, LBJ. Some of them never even got a chance, like McGovern, Jimmy Carter. It always ends up being rejected. Now, you might say, well, conservatism is too. I would say no to that because the only real conservative president we've had is Reagan, and he won 2 landslides, and he would have won a third had he been on the ballot. But liberalism is rejected, and it's not just because people grow tired of faces and not because people want to see something new and want to see change. It is specific. We have 3 elections to document it here. The Democrats are now out there claiming they get it. They understand, or they're in the process of understanding. They understand that they have ignored flyover country. They understand they have ignored the white working class vote. They understand. They did all this on purpose. They did all of this strategically. They threw in with a coalition of minorities, cultural and political minorities. And they banked on the fact that there would be a winning majority with that approach, and there isn't. And that is heartwarming to realize as well. The protesters, by the way, it has been stated by me because I know it. I have no doubt about it. I found the ads on Craigslist, but now it's been documented. Protesters in Oregon who have been paid to protest didn't even vote in Oregon or anywhere else. A whole slew of them have been interviewed and investigated. They didn't even vote, and yet they're out there protesting the outcome of an election. They're bought and paid for. In some cases, they're being paid $1,500 a week. Some cases, $12 to $18 a day. Some cases, 24/7. We have lived a mirage. We've been living as the objects of delusion for the last 8 years. The depth of this defeat 5 states with Democrat governor and Democrat state legislatures. Do you realize the meaning of that? You realize the power that has been lost has been rejected by voters all over this country? 5 states, and it's actually 4 if you throw out Connecticut because it only wins because of a tie in the Senate with tiebreaker. But it's just incredible. 2010, we saw it, 900 seats in the 2010 election, 700 more seats in the 2014 election. We add to it that the media making up the fact that Trump didn't know you had to staff the West Wing, that Trump needed Obama's assistance, made up stories. They're actually the result of leaks. People like the Trump kids Trump demanding security clearance for his kids. Grab soundbite number 22. Kellyanne Conway was on Fox and Friends today. Ainsley Earhart said, "We're getting reports that the Trump team is seeking top security clearance for the children. I want to know if that's true."
That was an informal question that was posed by someone. It doesn't sound like it was a formal request. And again, somebody leaked it. I don't know if to embarrass or stir up trouble. But look, the Trump children will be very supportive of their father and his presidency.
Right. It's understandable that Trump would want security clearances for them because he wants their counsel. He wants their advice. They have been advising him throughout, and not only here, but in his businesses. It makes total sense. And again, the people that would reject this are people from the old school who have the existing playbook that the establishment's used, and if it's not in there, well, then you can't do it. I mean, there's so many great things that have happened in this election. The whole donor class had it thrown back in their face. The professional political consultants class, they had it thrown right back in their faces. And they were so much of what was wrong on the Republican side by refusing to treat the Democrats as the opposition. Anyway, that's old ground. I want to plow new ground, and there is continuing new ground with the depth of this Democrat defeat. I want you to think now about all that you heard before the election regarding Trump and demographics and how it all added up to he had no prayer. Let's review. And not everything, but let's touch some of the high points. I don't care where you went. We could go to Fox News. You could go to CNN, MSNBC. You could go to ABC, NBC, CBS. You could go to New York Times, Washington Post. Wherever you went, they told you that Trump was going to lose big with women. They were not going to put up with Trump, particularly educated, college-educated white women. Ditto Hispanics. There was no way Trump had come down the escalator at Trump Tower and he'd called illegal aliens from Mexico rapists and murderers, and they weren't going to put up with that. And besides, because women all vote alike, we were told, and Hispanics all vote alike. They're all monolithic thinkers. They all think alike, all women do, and all Hispanics all think alike, and they all vote alike. And they were all universally said to hate and despise Trump. And even on election night, noted experts on Fox News kept reminding us of the late voting and early voting Hispanic population that was way, way up, and it spelled doom for Trump. And all of this was stated with a smile on the face by the various analysts and strategists and commentators and pundits who were treating us to their expertise. Not only that, blacks, oh man, it was going to be brutal. African Americans just hated Trump because they loved Obama and they loved Hillary. And all women, didn't matter what race, didn't matter sexual orientation. Women were totally all on board and devoted to the idea of the first female president. All of them. Break that glass ceiling. Even Hillary schedules her election night victory at the Javits Center that has a glass ceiling. I mean, it was never ending. I'm sure you remember all of it. I'm sure that you believed some of it. I'm sure that some of it alarmed you. Because on the surface, it seemed to make sense. I mean, Trump was out there. They had the Access Hollywood video. They had all of this. But you want to hear some actual demographic results as compared to 2012? Well, I have them right here, my friends, in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers. By the way, Brian has added a thicker stock of paper to the printer, which helps me, by the way, in separating pages, but it has a different sound. Not that different. But anyway, by demographic, men versus women in 2012. Well, no, let's go with this year first. In 2016, Trump got 54% of the male vote, up 5% from 2012. And I know numbers are hard to follow, but try, folks. This is the gender demographic breakdown. 2016, Trump, 54% of the male vote, an increase of 5% over Mitt Romney. Trump got 42% of the female vote. That is minus 1% from 2012. That's nothing. Trump was not supposed to get over 20% of the female vote. That's what polling told us. That's what the experts and the analysts told us. But Trump got 42% of the female vote. Race. Trump got 1% additional white vote over 2012. But in the black vote, Trump added 7% more black support this year than in 2012. Trump plus 8 Hispanic votes this year versus 2012. So white, black, Hispanic, Trump increased Republican votes by 7 to 8%. Not supposed to happen. Age, 18 to 29, millennials. Supposed to come out in droves just for Hillary, just going to bury Trump. Trump got 5% more votes in 2016 than Romney got in 2012 in the 18 to 29 demographic. Income. I've got to take a break. I just looked at the clock. But this is pretty much it. Everything they told us where Trump was going to die demographically just didn't happen. In fact, for the most part, Trump improved over Republican performance, Romney, in 2012. The bottom line here, ladies and gentlemen, is this election is a mandate election unlike elections we have seen in the past. There aren't many like this. There's no doubt about this. There is no way the Democrats, they're going to try, and the media is trying to spin this as an accident, as a temper tantrum or whatever, but don't fall for this. I want you people to be up. I want you to be happy. I want you to be confident. I want you to understand that you're in the majority and you're winning and you never were in the minority, and this is a golden opportunity, the likes of which nobody expected and that we haven't seen in a while. And it was a mandate election. Trump has a mandate. Everything that we have undergone, every penalizing and punishing policy that we've been subjected to for the last 8 years was sent packing. It was rejected. It is a mandate election. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about the Donald Trump that we're seeing now. I alluded to some of it yesterday when I told you what I really thought was going on, the way Trump's dealing with Obama, say, at the Oval Office, or praising Obama as a great guy, or what have you. And it's about a number of things, but among them at the top is that Trump knows we're precariously balanced as a nation. The people that lost this election are devastated and in stages of denial and anger that makes them volatilely dangerous, and they still hold the levers of power. So there will be nothing done to provoke them. My theory, I think nothing will be done to provoke them. Trump knows that his presidency begins on January 20th, not before. I mean, he can name his cabinet, do some things in that nature, transition team, announce various intentions, but biding time here publicly and advancing the ball behind the scenes is the agenda, is what's taking place here. and there'll be some tolerance for media doing this or that. It's all about getting to January 20th, folks. And then it's Katie bar the door. Then it's look out. And you sit tight. We got more coming up. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Your guiding light, Rush Limbaugh, serving humanity simply by showing up, simply by being here. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. And if you want to send an email, we have a new email address. It's lrushbo@eibnet.us. Here are some hard numbers for you. What has happened to the Democrats under Barack Obama's presidency? If you want to know what the Barack Obama legacy really is, since Obama became president in 2008, the Democrats have lost 11 seats in the Senate. They have lost 60 seats in the House of Representatives. They have lost 14 governorships. And as I previously stated, there are only 4 states in this entire country where the Democrats control the governorship and the state legislature. Only 4 out of 50. Since Obama became president, the Democrats have lost 900 state legislative seats all across the country. They have lost mayor's offices. They have lost city council. I mean, it's all the way down the ballot. This repudiation is deep and it is specific. It's why Trump has a mandate. It is a rejection of what Barack Obama stood for. It is a rejection of every policy Obama put forth. It's a rejection of the ideology of Barack Obama. There's nothing happenstance. This decimating defeat took place over basically 6 years. Obama got a honeymoon the first 2 years. And to show you the depth of denial that Obama's in, we got the soundbites coming in. Pardon the sniffles here, folks. Nothing's wrong. Just have oddballs. Actually, maybe cigar smoke causing the sniffles. There's nothing to worry about. Everything cool here. I'm watching Obama in his press conference, joint press conference with the Prime Minister of Greece, who really, Obama would be asked a question, and he would take 10 minutes answering it. And then they'd go to the Prime Minister of Greece for the follow-up, and he would just kind of throw his arms out and make a facial expression like, I have no idea what to say to that, because it was so absent and devoid reality. Obama said that the reason this election had nothing to do with him. It had nothing to do with him. There were a bunch of liars out there in the Republican media and in media at large, and people did not have their facts straight. He said people loved the repairs made in infrastructure in the past 8 years. I mean, folks, this is it's actually not denial. It's classic Democrat liberalism. Just lie. Lie about your accomplishments. Lie about your achievements. What you do is you take your intentions, what you hope to accomplish, what you think you're going to get done, and then you just act like you've done it. That is liberalism in a nutshell. You pile all of your hopes and your expectations and your dreams into this little package called It Happened. And then you run around talking about all the great things you did. He's in Greece talking about all the infrastructure improvements in America and how the American people have great appreciation for him for having done it. And you watch this, and you ask yourself serious questions about, what is this? Is this denial? Or does this represent strategy? I mean, what is this? Because none of it was true. Listen to the New York Times writing about this. The Democrats, this our old buddy Jonathan Martin, he used to be over at Politico. He said the Democrats' stunning defeat in the presidential race and continued struggles in lower-level contests have jolted party leaders into concluding that their emphasis on cultural issues has all but crippled them by diverting voters' attention from the core Democrat message of economic fairness. Translation: the Democrats got so absorbed in uprooting American culture by letting people of any gender use whatever bathroom they wanted, gay marriage and all this other stuff, that they forgot their attachment to the quote-unquote little guy. Over President Obama's 2 terms, writes the Times, Democrats have embraced a down-the-line cultural liberalism that energized his coalition of millennials, minorities, and college-educated whites. But the growing nationalization of politics and the Democrats' drift to the left doomed a number of candidates. It goes on and on and on, and just it gets close, but it doesn't quite get to the real reason all of this happened. And then there's this. Now, without rebuking the still popular president personally, there's a growing recognition among many Democrats that Mr. Obama's way may not be the best course in a country where many voters have experienced little income growth and where high-paying jobs can be scarce. You think. So what happened to the Democrats? Why did they abandon the quote-unquote little guy? Why did they? And this happened back in November of 2011. Why did they? And it was actually stated in a column in the Washington Post as campaign strategy for the upcoming 2012 campaign. They announced that they were going to abandon the pursuit of the votes of the white working class in America. Thomas B. Edsall wrote the piece. Why would they do this? One answer, one name, Barack Hussein Obama. The people the Democrat Party abandoned are the people Obama doesn't like and the people Obama blames for America being the way it is. Racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobic, the bitter clingers, white, working-class Americans. And Obama took his party to where he believed the victims of white working-class Americans were wallowing away in misery and obscurity. And that would be minority populations of one type or another. Basically what you have when you have an angry, irritated community agitator and community organizer as chief executive. And this man remains the titular head of the Democrat Party, by the way. And he's going to see to it that he does. He's not leaving Washington. After his presidency, he's going to stay there. He's going to be the face. He's going to be the top dog in the Democrat Party. He's going to be on TV rejecting, stopping, obstructing whatever Trump tries to do. Make book on it. It's going to happen. He's going to do it from his only venue of experience, and that's community organizing and agitation. So we may be looking at 4 years. We might now have an actual new big, as in big protest. Big protest might become a never-ending, ongoing movement bought and paid for by the Democrat Party, made to look organic and natural. This is what community agitators do. It's what community organizers do. They get people riled up and protesting. And where they don't do it on their own, they pay for it. They hire them to go do it. And that's going to be the titular head of the Democrat Party. And as long as that happens, the Democrat Party is going to continue to lose elections big. That's why I say it's incumbent on as many people as in a position to do so to explain to people what you don't like about America is liberalism. What you voted against, that's what liberalism is. When you hear us describe liberals and liberalism, it's what you just rejected. It's what you just repudiated. Liberalism is what happened to your health care. Liberalism is what happened to your economy. Liberalism is what happened to open borders and immigration. Liberalism is what happened to the education of your kids. Liberalism is what happened that put this country into decline. The thing is, you need to understand it was on purpose. Liberals did what they did on purpose. It wasn't because they thought it would make America great. It wasn't because they thought it would make America greater, because they don't believe America deserves to be great. Their protest signs even say so. Colin Kaepernick even says so. America never has been great as far as he's concerned. And to the Democrat Party and your average, ordinary liberal and leftist around the world, America has never been great, but furthermore, doesn't deserve to be because of all of the mistakes America has made since its founding. And those are basically cultural. They are racism, sexism, bigotry, discrimination, all of that. America deserves to be in decline. The powerful in America deserve to pay the price unless they are aligned with Democrats as cronies, and then they will be exempted. So Wall Street was exempted, big bank was exempted, a certain big retail was exempted. But if you weren't crony aligned with the Democrat Party, you were going to feel the full force of the power of the federal government. America, as far as liberals are concerned, doesn't deserve to be great. It deserves to be in decline. That is the only way, in their view, that the grievance industry can get justice. Social justice mandates that America be in decline because that's the only way the guilty can be punished. And with liberalism, it's about punishing. It's not about rewarding. It's not about elevating. It's not about raising people. It's not about taking people from the lower middle class to the upper middle class and beyond. Liberalism is about punishing achievers, punishing success, and blaming them for the plight that everybody else is in or feeling. And by that definition, the country must be in decline. It's no different than liberals telling you they're going to go raise taxes on the rich, and you saying, well, how's it going to help me? And the liberal says, it's not going to help you, but it's going to punish the people who've been taking your money. Okay, well, you punish them then. Damn right, you go punish them. But understand now, it's not going to elevate your standard of living. Yeah, that's fine. You punish them. I'll feel better. That's liberalism. America deserves to be in decline. America never was great and doesn't deserve to be great the way it was founded and the way it's constituted. America deserves to be punished. That's Barack Obama. That's his agenda. That's what was rejected because a majority of Americans doesn't buy into that at all. And all of these 8 years, such a shame. It's nothing more. It's a shame how many of us were on the verge of believing we'd lost our country and that we were vastly outnumbered and that we had lost the country to them, to this. But it wasn't true, and it isn't true. America came through. PJ Media, at every level of government, the Democrat Party is dead. They do not deserve to be revived by a Republican Party feeling guilty, magnanimous, or even obsessed with the notion of unity. The way to achieve unity is not by incorporating a little bit of what the Democrats want with our agenda. The way to achieve unity is not by reaching out to the protesters and saying, what can we do to make you happier? The way to achieve unity here is to firmly and finally establish that we are a growth nation that is devoted, as our founding proclaimed, to liberty and freedom and the pursuit of happiness for everybody. And you are more than welcome to join us as we head back in that direction. But we're not going to incorporate what you have believed as a means of being fair, as a means of being nice. It's too serious. This has been the Republican Party's problem. With every victory came a certain amount of guilt and a desire to almost apologize for the victory by including Democrats in whatever we were going to do. Now, you might be noticing the Republican leadership not doing anything like that right now. They had their big meeting today, first press conference. They're all wearing Make America Great hats. They're wearing Trump hats. These guys are fired up like I've never seen them. They're enthused like I've never seen them. They're out there. They're ready to roll up their sleeves. They're ready to get going today to implement the Trump agenda. Why? What's changed? Not why. Why they change? I can answer that if you want, but I think I'm going to take a brief time out because I must. We'll come back, and I'll decide whether we get to your phone calls or go off on other things. Well, sit tight, my friends. America's real anchorman, America's truth detector, and the doctor of democracy, meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. Looky here, my friends. Eugene Robinson, columnist, Washington Post. He also, I don't know if he still is, back in the days where we did not have our ban on audio from MSNBC, he was a regular panelist there a strategist, a Democrat hack disguised as a columnist for the Washington Post. And the headline of his column that published yesterday, "I do not wish Trump success on his agenda." I haven't seen any angry tweets about this. I haven't seen anybody castigating Eugene Robinson for daring to suggest that he can't get behind and support our new president like we were told we had to do in 2008. I said I hope he fails. I got hammered by the Drive-Bys for 8 years. But don't worry, I'm not complaining. Don't misunderstand. I enjoyed it. Every time I got hammered, it was an opportunity to explain to a new group of people what I really meant. And now, after 8 years, everybody agrees with me. I hope he fails. He didn't, and that's why he's been sent packing. He succeeded in implementing his agenda. That's what I didn't want to happen. Eugene Robinson essentially says, I hope Trump fails. And nothing. Crickets. Not a tweet. Not a series of Facebook posts. Nobody in the drive-by media raking Eugene Robinson over the coals for this kind of partisan divide. He says the people chose Hillary Clinton, but it's the electoral vote that counts, not the popular vote, so Donald Trump will be president. No, I'm not over it. No one should be over it. If a normal Republican had been elected, I could say the polite and socially acceptable thing, something like I didn't support so-and-so, but he'll be my president too, and I wish him success. But I can't wish Trump success in rounding up and deporting millions of people or banning Muslims. Or here again, these people believing literally while not taking seriously. But anyway, Eugene Robinson, I do not wish Trump success on his agenda. And he's being hailed as brilliant and precise and all this. What does he mean if a normal Republican had been elected? What is in Eugene Robinson's world, what is a normal Republican? A Washington Generals Republican. A Republican that realizes there is a pincushion. A Republican who realizes he's there to be beat up and destroyed. A Republican who realizes he has no business being president, should not have been elected. A Republican who's basically a rhino and a loser. Everybody on the Democrat side can get behind that kind of Republican, but not a winner. Look, folks, I'm pretty sure I know what Trump is doing, why he's doing what he's doing, and what it is. If I tell you, and if I'm right, all I'm doing is alerting the opposition to it, which would not be good. So it's one of these things I got to find a way to speak it to you in coded language they won't understand, or just shut up about it. Hey, I meant to mention this in the first hour, and I didn't get around to it. There are two things going on today that one of them is being covered and one of them barely being covered. The Democrats in the House were going to have a leadership vote today to ostensibly reelect Nancy Pelosi to be the leader of the Democrats in the House. But a bunch of Democrats have been working to postpone the vote because they don't want Pelosi. They don't want Pelosi to be the face of the Democrat Party in the House. An underreported story. By the way, greetings and welcome back. El Rushbo at 800-282-2882. By the way, one other thing. Email during the break. Why are you spending so much time on what we already know? The Democrats lost. Because I want it to sink in. I want everybody to have confidence how big this is. I want everybody to know. I said before the election and in the immediate aftermath, when you take away the things I have to do here, because this is a radio program and it's in the broadcasting business, radio specifically, there are requirements there to succeed. And since we're in the free market and capitalism, we don't have donors and we don't have funders. I mean, the program has to succeed. If that doesn't happen, all the rest of this is academic. So beyond that, beyond trying to meet those demands that I place on myself and how I define professional success, the purpose of this radio program has been to defeat the left. I mean, there are many other things as well, but the overarching objective here has been to educate and to inform people about the pitfalls and the dangers of liberalism. And it's happened, folks. This election is it. This is whether people realize it or not. And that's what I hope to build upon, is people realizing why this happened. Liberalism, leftism, whatever you want, was rejected, repudiated big time. And so many people don't want this to be seen as an ideological election, primarily Democrats, because they don't want you to know that that's what happened. They want you to think it's something else, just a change election. The people tired of the same old faces want to go different direction. No. It's much more specific than that. And even maybe some of the people that contributed to this big victory and defeat of the Democrats may not have done so because they wanted to stamp out liberalism, but they ended up doing it. And it's a big, big deal. It is an overwhelmingly, massively successive thing. It's one of the things I was hoping for when we got to the victory in the House in 1994. So to me, in a personal sense, folks, I'm sure you can indulge me one little personal desire here. This is huge. It is overwhelming, and it's joyous, this massive defeat. So that's why, because I want everybody listening to the sound of my dulcet tones to understand exactly why this happened. And I'm gratified. There were people, all the smart people, all the learned pundits and commentators, even on Fox News and CNN, wherever, who before the election, in addition to saying Trump had no prayer, were saying that the Republican Party was practically non-existent. It was about to be wiped out, and that conservatism was the reason. They wanted us to believe that conservatism equaled Republican landslide losses. Conservative nominee, that's why we couldn't have Ted Cruz, that's why we couldn't have Rubio, because it would have been nothing more than another Barry Goldwater landslide defeat. And that ticked me off. Conservatism's been our only way out of this mess. And Trump has learned it as this campaign has gone on. You can tell it by the people he's thinking about putting in his cabinet. You can tell it by Supreme Court nominees. It matters. Conservatism is ascendant and is triumphant. And there are even conservative publications who don't want to admit this or say this because they're afraid to. But it's true. There is a lot to be ecstatically happy about in this election. And I'm trying to just remind everybody what it is. And the media isn't going to report it this way. They're not going to cast this election in anywhere near the truthful light that it is. Once again, it falls upon me to do so, and I happily am here to do it. Now, the two things that are being underreported, the first, the House leadership election vote. They wanted to delay it because they don't want Pelosi. Not all of them, but enough House Democrats. They're tired. There are some House Democrats and Democrats around the country who realize what's happened here. And they understand. They're happy Harry Reid is going. And they don't want Pelosi to be around, scaring people left and right. Pelosi can't tell the truth about things. Pelosi is just poison. I mean, the Democrats have proven that the people they have been using out front as their message carriers, have defeated them. The Democrats, slowly but surely, some of them, not all, are realizing that Pelosi and Harry Reid as the face of the Democrats is not how they're going to grow their party back. Those people are too divisive. They are too... It's not even that they're controversial. They're just plain divisive. They are mean-spirited. They are radicals. They cannot and do not tell the truth. So anyway, a number of House Democrats have moved all day today and yesterday to postpone the leadership vote until after Thanksgiving. And they succeeded. So the leadership vote that was going to automatically reelect Pelosi as the leader of the Democrats in the House has been postponed until after Thanksgiving. The reason? They want somebody other than Pelosi. A, they want somebody younger. B, they want somebody much less incendiary and provocative. Although that's going to be hard to find because that's what your average Democrat today is. Your average Democrat today is a bomb thrower who is incapable of happiness, incapable of joy. They're perpetually angry because there's always a victim out there being exploited by somebody, usually an American, and it's got to be stopped. They are their own worst enemy. The second thing that's happening that the media really is avoiding, I've seen one story on it twice. For all the people protesting out there for Trump or against Trump, those are people bought and paid for. There are Democrats at the New York office of Chuck Schumer, and they are protesting Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is going to be the new Harry Reid. He's going to be the new leader of the Democrats in the Senate. And there are a bunch of Bernie Sanders voters who are fit to be tied. They realize how the whole DNC and the Hillary Clinton organization stacked the deck against them and rigged that primary election. And they have late, but they finally arrived at the inescapable conclusion that Hillary and the DNC are inexorably linked to the people they hate, Wall Street. The far left wing of the Democrat Party thinks that Chuck Schumer is linked to Wall Street and big banks, which he is because he's from New York. Those are the people that donate. Those are the people that underwrite campaigns. Chuck Schumer is indebted to investment banks, big banks, Wall Street banks, investment houses, hedge funds, and they don't like it, and they want somebody besides Schumer. So for all of the talk, all the protesting about Trump or against Trump, the Democrats are getting a taste of it too. The media tries to paint a picture in the aftermath of this election that the only anger out there is at Trump. We have essentially a huge, huge Donald Trump win. When you measure what the expectations were, when you measure what all the predictions were and all the polling data, and even I'm told that people in the Hillary Clinton campaign, as late as 9 p.m. on election night, thought they were coasting to a landslide victory because they believed all of their sacred pollsters. They believed all of their incestuous political brothers and sisters. They thought it was in the bag as late as 9 p.m. Tuesday night. I'm also told that the reason Hillary didn't show up and concede late Tuesday, early Wednesday morning is that she was not fit. Bob Tyrrell in the American Spectator, who has developed sources that have been close to the Clintons since they were in the White House, report that she had lost it, was shouting obscenities and even throwing things at people inside the victory suite. We hear this so much, there has to be some truth to it. So anyway, the Democrats thought it was in the bag as recently as late as 9 p.m. And, of course, when you measure this against expectations, and by the way, not just polling data, but just take the behavior of the Democrats, the arrogant condescension, the conceit with which they were running around here the past 6 months, that the election was a mere formality, that Hillary was going to be coronated. It was all over for the shouting. And especially as all the October surprises and dirt about Trump popped up, why it was not even going to be a contest. People hated Trump. And you turn around, you look at the results, and in standard political measurements, it may not have been a landslide, but measured against expectations, it was. Not only was it a landslide, it was an earthquake. It was a tsunami. It was a shock. And it was something they're still recovering from. So the media's mission right now is to try to create another illusion. The illusion is that this is an upset. And that the only anger is at Trump. That the nation is angry at the result. This is the illusion. This is why they're focusing on all the protests. This is why the protests are happening. This is why they're being bought and paid for. This is why they're out there in growing numbers. It's to give the media the opportunity to present a picture that says to people the entire country is angry over this. You are supposed to once again be dispirited, depressed. You are to think that this victory was an aberration and somehow not real, a focus on the popular vote. And you're supposed to think you are still in the minority, that you are still fading away into nothing. And Democrats still run the show, and the proof is all the anger out there at Trump, outside Trump Tower, in all of these big cities. And I'm telling you, it's just like it was during the campaign. It's an illusion. They have lost practically everything, folks, and there are people protesting them. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, nobody crying any tears over Dingy Harry going out now and building homes on his crazy land deals that he made when he was senator in Nevada. I mean, it's just a total embarrassing repudiation of the Democrat Party and their ideology. But they don't quit, and the media is doing everything they can to make it look like that's the opposite of what happened, that this is somehow some quirk, and that the majority of thinking in this country is outraged and angry, and Trump will not be allowed to finish his term, whatever it takes. We're going to get Trump. This because the American people didn't vote for this, and they did in overwhelming numbers and ways. So, protesting Schumer, delaying the vote so that Pelosi doesn't become the leader again in the House. They are in dire straits on the Democrat side, and they must be kept there, folks. Now, the House Republicans, I've had it noted to me in some emails, man, these guys are really excited. Rush, it was great to see. They're all wearing Trump Make America Great Again caps, and they're out there just enthusiastic as I've ever seen them. And they are. They really are. But they, too, didn't expect any of this. You understand, don't you, that all of the Washington establishment, both parties, thought that this was going to be a de facto Clinton win, that it wasn't even a contest, that it was going to be another humiliating defeat for Trump and by extension the Republicans. And the Republicans thought that they were going to be maybe decimated and non-existent as a party. And do not doubt me, they thought that on last Wednesday, the election results would have essentially disbanded and blown up the Republican Party, and it was going to be put back together from scratch. And that's what they were all aiming for. Everybody was jockeying for position to be in positions of power when the Republican Party was put back together. And again, from that standpoint and that perspective, an earthquake hit, the exact opposite of what every expert thought and predicted. Now, the Republicans are giddy and they're excited and they're out there saying it's a full speed ahead agenda implementation. Now, whatever Trump wants, we are behind it 100%. And people scratching their heads saying, where'd this come from? And it's not hard to explain. A, everybody likes being on the winning team. B, everybody loves basking in the glow of the light of the winning team. Everybody wants to be thought of as part of the reason why the winning team won. Everybody wants to get on the act. When you got a great stage show going, nobody wants to be in the audience, folks. Everybody wants to be on the stage. And that's where we are right now. So the Republican leadership wants everybody to think they played a significant role in this. And when it's obvious someone individual didn't, those people still want it thought that they are fully and totally on board. Plus, somebody else did it. Trump did it. It's easy to get behind the guy that did it. It's much easier to follow the guy that did it than to be carrying the spears and go out there and take the arrows yourself, which is what they didn't much have a stomach for, given the way the media's treated them. But now it's an entirely different thing. You've got Trump out there who's going to be taking all the arrows. Trump's going to be taking all the attacks. And they have a little bit of insulation. But even at that, I don't mean to be critical. Just trying to explain psychology here. But we haven't won anything yet. That's the thing to keep in mind. We won an election. But that's it. Take a brief time out. Time to get back to your phone calls, then, and the audio soundbites of Obama in denial in Greece today. All coming up. Don't go away. Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. Rush Limbaugh. The EIB network into our 29th year of service to the people of America and the world. Here is Michael in Lyndhurst, New Jersey. You're first today, sir, so it's great to have you with us. Hi.
Hi, Rush. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I want to point out something that you had said right after Romney lost a few years ago, when everybody else was saying he needed to go after the African American and he needed to go after the Latin vote, and they were saying he needed percentages that were huge, 8%, 9%, 10%, in order to capture the presidency. You were the only one that said no, look the other way. It was the white vote. He only needed 3% of the white vote. Now, somebody will say, well, 8% to 3%, as far as a number, it's a big difference. You were looking positively because as a percentage of the electoral, the white population represents a larger bulk as opposed to the African American.
What do you
and the Latin.
think? Let me ask you a quick question, everybody out there. What do you think the percentage of the population of our country, 300 plus million Americans, what percentage are white?
If I had to take a guesstimate, I would think somewhere around 55%.
70% of the population
70.
Is white. Now, compare that with the way the media makes you think demographics have been changing. They are changing, but I'm not denying demographics are changing. But they would have you believe that it's just a matter of years, days, months before you are nothing but another minority prepared to be stomped on.
And that's why your point was perfect, because
Exactly
it took,
right.
of course, 70% was not, all of them are not
Of course
voting.
not, but there's even more to it than that. I'm glad you called. Let me build on it when we get back. Our last caller was pretty much right. Here's what happened after 2012. Romney lost, and immediately the consultants and experts on the Republican side said, see, we never going to win if we don't reach out to the Hispanic vote. Primarily the Hispanic vote. That was it. As far as the Republican Party, the way they looked at things, their presidential future required reaching out to the Hispanic vote. Not so much African Americans, because they've thought that was never possible. The Hispanic vote. But they didn't mean reach out to the Hispanic vote as Republicans. They didn't mean reach out to the Hispanic vote as conservatives. Oh, no. What they meant was we had got to do a cool hand Luke, and we got to get our minds right, and we got to go out there as Republicans and announce that we are for amnesty. Now, we may not want to use the word, but we've got to transmit to these Hispanics that we're perfectly fine with all of those millions, however many there are living in the shadows, coming out and becoming citizens. That we, as Republicans, support that. And the Democrats were telling us that we would never win the White House if we didn't do this either. Remember that? The Democrats, who so desperately want us to win the White House now and then, were really trying to help us by telling us that we had to get on board amnesty. And that's what I objected to. I'm opposed to reaching out to Hispanics. I'm all for reaching out to everybody as Americans, not as members of groups, and not treating people as though they're legitimate members of some grievance group, but reaching out to them as human beings. And what I said after the 2012 election was, if the Republican Party continues to have a different message for every different group, they're going to die. We already have a party that does that, and they own it. It's called a Democrat Party. The pressure the Republicans were under was the donors. Chamber of Commerce has been taken over by a bunch of leftists and CEO types. And they donate to the Wall Street Journal. They buy ads in the Wall Street Journal. They donate to the Republican Party. So the Wall Street Journal, the editorial page, and the Republican Party were all in for amnesty. And that's what was to constitute outreach to Hispanics. Well, I raising my hand up, trying to put on the brakes, and no, you're going to not win anything, and you're going to lose. In fact, that might result in the party actually becoming so small that it doesn't exist. You're going to lose every loyalist in the base you have, I said, if you guys go and do that. But they persisted in thinking that they had to reach out to Hispanics by agreeing with and promoting amnesty. And they believed it up until last Tuesday. Do not doubt me. They believed. That's why they were so, folks, they were crapping the bed, with all this stuff that Trump had said. They really, the last Tuesday, they're going to vote thinking it's maybe the last time there's ever an R on a ballot. I cannot overemphasize this. The attitude, the defeatist attitude that everybody on the Republican side had. But you look at the campaign, what did Trump do? Trump did not identify people by virtue of their nationality. He identified them by virtue of their behavior as criminals. He stood up for law and order. He reached out to Hispanics. The idea that Hispanics or women or any other group of people think alike, vote alike, that's what Democrats want. They want mind-numbed robots who all think alike and who all vote alike. It's easy. You dumb them down, you get rid of critical thinking, and you just have a blob basically out there of people that look for the D on the ballot and pull the lever. But Trump actually went to places Republicans haven't gone. He went to Detroit. He went to African-American neighborhoods and had a message that basically was, what have you got to lose by trying me? It can't get any worse as I listen to you. If I may say, my friends, he used a variation of one of my own utterances here that I've been using for a lot of years, and that is, if I were African American and I'd been voting for Democrats for 50 years and I'm still complaining about the same things, at some point I'm going to ask, what is this getting me? Nothing. I've been voting for these guys to do me well. I've been voting for them to get me out of the bonds of poverty. I've been voting to protecting me against racism and so forth. The racism, they tell me, is worse than ever. And who's been running the show? The Democrats. Racism is worse than ever. Violence is worse than ever. The economy is worse than ever. Unemployment's worse than ever. And it's Democrats have been running the show with the first African-American president at the top of the heap. And it didn't get any better. Trump went out there and said, I want it to get better. And it worked. He got an increase. I've put the paper in the back of the stack. Trump got 7% more black votes than Romney got. That's huge. That takes the 93% that always vote for Democrats and takes it down to 86. And that's all anybody said had to have. We don't need to get them all, Rush. Just need to get 8, 9, 10%, and we could ruin the Democrat Party. Look what's happened. Trump got 8% more Hispanic voters than Romney got in 2012. And he did reach out to them. And what was his message? Build a wall. Everything the Republican Party was crapping the bed over turns out to have worked. Am I a little bit over the line in saying that? Because that's what they were doing. So all I did was after 2012 was remind the Republicans, do not follow your instincts and don't follow your consultants here. But they're in the establishment and I'm not. And so those are the people they trusted. I would love to be in their minds at that moment when they realize Trump's going to win. Because, folks, you cannot exaggerate how defeated they all thought they were on election night. I mean, it was keep the sharp objects away from them time. They really thought there might not ever be an R on a ballot again. And you go from that to an election where you need a telescope to see the Democrat Party. And you know the thing about that? We all saw it. It was all there. I remember even telling you about it, how many seats the Democrats have lost 2010, 2014. They even lost seats in 2012. Obama won, but they lost seats in 2012. in the presidential election. Not a lot, but they didn't gain. Republicans got the Senate, didn't they? 2014. So it was all there. It was happening right before our very eyes. The Democrats were losing elections except when Obama was on the ballot. And that is the racial component. Here is Bill in Indian Harbor Beach, Florida. Bill, great to have you. I'm glad you waited. Welcome to the program, sir.
Rush, it's such an honor. I'm not going to drown you with the accolades previous callers have set upon you. I'm just going to, and forgive me if I don't sound like I'm excited to talk to you, but I've considered you a close friend over the last 20 years.
Well, I appreciate that very much. You don't need to.
Well, Rush, I tell you what, I've gone through 12 heart attacks and cancer. And my faith and your radio show has kept me going to the day where I was able to see this election take place.
12 heart attacks and cancer?
Yes, and that's why I'm talking a little slowly. I just wanted to say one thing. You opened your show why. Well, just as the Democrats have pandered to individual groups left and right and divided this country, when Obama last year redefined marriage, that's been around for 5,000 years, has got into the social engineering and the sexual identity. You know what? There are a lot of people who believe male and female, who believe in the sanctity of marriage, and they were saying, hey, what the heck is this? I better get out of my seat before I wake up tomorrow and I don't recognize this country at all. What is your take on that, Rush?
Well, you are. I'm not sure I understand why you're asking me. If you think, are you basically talking about all of the disasters Obama has implemented in our culture? You mentioned gay marriage.
Well, yes. Well,
and the bathroom laws and this kind of stuff. But
that's it. 8 years ago, I was listening to you, and you said that Obama will overreach, and that will be his downfall. And for 8 years, I was saying, maybe you should call up and tell him he was wrong on that. But he's a friend. You don't want to do that. But after this election, I said, you know what? He wasn't wrong. He did overreach.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I thought you were going to accountability. I thought Obama would overreach. What I thought was going to happen has happened. Obama campaigned as nothing but change. He campaigned as, I'm not George W. Bush. I'm hope and change. And whatever you want me to be, that's who I am. You want lower sea levels, that's me. If you want climate change stopped, that's me. If you want us out of war, that's me. Whatever people wanted, that's what he was. Well, what I knew, by the way, I don't mean to sound braggadocious, folks. Please don't necessarily. What I knew is who Obama is. Obama is a radical community organizer, means agitator, protest, unrest, chaos, left-wing authoritarian. Obama is an uber liberal, an uber leftist. And I don't know how many times I've said it. If I've said it once, it's a gazillion times. Liberals cannot win elections being honest about who they are, what they're going to do. And Obama wasn't. He happily presented himself as a blank canvas. But I knew who he was. That's why I said I hope he fails. I knew what he was going to do. He had told enough people his Obamacare plans. He had told enough people his Supreme Court plans. He had told enough people about his desire to transform America. He didn't like the founding, basically because it's Christian and white. He didn't like it. He thought the country was socially unjust and unfair. He was going to change it. He didn't campaign on any of this. That's why he was going to overreach. But I did say what you would have been right about if you'd have called and chastised me was I was really sad and disappointed he was not being held accountable. The guy wins re-election in 2012. I said, for crying out loud. Then I saw the exit polls, cares about people like me, 81-19 over Romney, still blaming Bush for the economy. I said, for crying out loud. Nobody is attaching anything that he's done to him. So I evolved a Limbaugh theorem to explain it. The Limbaugh theorem basically is that Obama casts himself as an outsider, even when he's running the show, acting like all these horrible things are happening because of his predecessors, and he's in there working really hard to change them, but it's worse than anybody knew and anybody ever told him. And so the progress is going to be very slow. All the while, he's taken this country in directions it was never founded to go, never intended to be. And I was pulling my hair out because I thought he wasn't being held accountable. He was when he wasn't on the ballot. He's not on the ballot in 2010, they get shellacked. He's not on the ballot in 2014, they get shellacked. He's not on the ballot in 2016, he gets shellacked. In 2016, in 2014, in 2010, his issues are on the ballot. He gets shellacked, they get shellacked. 2012, he's on the ballot, he doesn't get shellacked. Why? Racial component. First African American. Can't tell a pollster I don't approve of the guy, and I can't vote against him if I did. I just can't. I can't have people find out I did. Oh, my God, that would be horrible. What will people say about me? So your point is, right, he ultimately here has been held accountable in the biggest way. This election last Tuesday, Barack Obama was finally held accountable for what he's done. All of this decline was laid squarely at his feet. That's another thing that is so joyous and delectable about this outcome, because he was campaigning, saying, you got to vote Hillary to keep my legacy, to keep my issues alive, to make sure we maintain the progress I have been responsible for. You've got to vote Hillary. And people said no in overwhelming, unexpected, dramatic fashion. So I was wrong about him not being held accountable. It just took 8 years for it to materialize. But I was not wrong in the direction he was going to take the country. Knew it full, because I know liberals. I know what they're going to do. That's what's so frustrating. I've been through this before. That more people don't see it. But I appreciate the call, Bill, and congratulations on whatever you do to withstand 12 heart attacks. By the way, a clarification on Trump and 8% of the Hispanic. What happened was Trump got 2% more and Hillary lost 6% of it. So it's a net gain of 8% Hispanic. Trump's actual increase over Romney was 2 points, but Hillary lost 6. That's how you get to an 8-point Romney win. Now, in the next hour, top of the next hour, I've been threatening to do this. I know you're not crazy about listening to Obama sound bites. I'm not either. That's why I didn't lead off the program. I know you don't want to hear Obama, especially now, but you're going to have to, folks. This is, again, teachable moment. It's very important. So we have some sound bites from Obama in Greece. It was in Athens with the Greek prime minister, and he was in utter denial over what has happened. I wasn't on the ballot. This election was not about me, and I'm going to be very important for Mr. Trump. Trump, he's not an ideologue. You know what? He's a pragmatist. He doesn't know what he's doing yet. He's going to need me. Now, he doesn't use those words, but that's what he's telling himself. You see, like all self-absorbed people who think they are God's gift and can't blame him. That's how he's been treated all of his life. The people who think they're God's gift, narcissists and so forth, when the bubble in which they live, and they create this bubble, they create this little cocoon where they tell themselves they're wonderful and great and that everybody loves them. And when something happens that pierces that, they ignore it. They don't deal with it. They push it away. So we have outside events here. We have an election that has contradicted and punctured all of the greatness that Obama thinks he is. And he can't, and nobody like him could either, intellectually or emotionally accept what's just happened. This is more than just the 5 stages of grief. We're in denial here. And so that's why I want you to hear these bites. You'll see what it is to which I refer when that happens. Don't go away. More than half of the arrested anti-Trump protesters in Oregon did not vote. more than half of them, and that's just Oregon, I'll bet you more than half of a lot of them didn't vote. Meaning they're not really ticked to be tied. Even if they are ticked to be tied, they didn't vote. So shut up. You sit tight, my friends. Broadcast excellence resumes momentarily. Right, so I've been assuring everybody we're going to get to the audio sound bites, Obama in Greece, and then stuff keeps happening that takes precedence over it, like this. They wrote this with a straight face. This is a quintessential classic example of how the media just doesn't get it. As you know, the Trump transition team is in full speed mode trying to come up with secretaries of state, Secretary of Transportation, Attorney General, you name it. And one of the names being bandied about is Rudy Giuliani. And Rudy's being bandied about for Attorney General first. And then his name's being bandied about Secretary of State. And they asked Rudy about Bolton. John Bolton's name's been bandied about for Secretary of State. And Rudy said, well, Bolton be okay, but I'd be better. Oh, there are reports that the Trump transition team is in turmoil. It's not. It's not. Don't believe it. I'm telling you, don't believe it. I just said that, and Snerdley smiled, really like what a great story. Yeah, they're not in turmoil. In fact, everything I've heard, Pence is running it, and it is a smooth transition, and everything's just fine, with a lot of people wanting to be appointed positions. But they what do you mean they purged Christie like they're Stalinists? Who said that? Stalinist purge Christie? Are you kidding me? Well, look, when I read this headline to you, this is from the Politico. I want to know what is the first thing that comes to your mind. It's a story about how Giuliani may not be suitable, may not be qualified to be secretary of anything. Are you ready for the headline? Giuliani took money from Qatar, Venezuela, Iranian exiles. His foreign clientele could present conflicts of interest as Secretary of State. Are you kidding me? These people write this story? Have you ever heard of Hillary Clinton Politico? Who wrote this? Isaac Arnsdorf. Hey, Isaac, have you ever heard of Hillary Clinton? You want to talk about conflicts of interest? I mean, half of the third world, half of the criminalized third world has underwritten the Clinton Foundation. The whole reason for her private email server was to cover up what they were doing, taking money from people who were buying. And Hillary Clinton sold this country's foreign policies as Secretary of State and was selling them on the come as a presidential candidate. It is still being investigated by the FBI. And they write with a very straight face. I mean, they're dead serious here. Rudy Giuliani's paid consulting for foreign governments would present conflicts of interest as the nation's top diplomat that would make the Clinton Foundation look trifling. Rudy has taken $100 million and given away half the uranium supply of the country to Kazakhstan while enriching a Canadian industrialist? CNN is talking about the Trump transition team as a bunch of people jockeying for top jobs, just like in Game of Thrones. Now, what happens in Game of Thrones? You watch Game of Thrones? If you don't, Game of Thrones is one of the most violent, gory dramas on TV. Beheadings that's the least of what could happen to you if you run afoul of a king. Comparing it to Game of Thrones. Did they actually say at MSNBC that it was a Stalinist-like purge that got rid of Chris Christie? Because of Bridgegate. This is too much fun. Now, I laugh with reservations because, folks, these people are dead serious. They're going to pursue Rudy Giuliani like they never pursued Hillary. That's what they're signaling here. The whole point of this story, Rudy, you try for this stuff and we're going to come after you, man. We're going to destroy you and we're going to expose everything we can find about who has hired you to do what. While we've covered up every bit of that we can find for Hillary, we're going to expose you for it. Make no mistake. And this is the kind of stuff, I feel confident saying this. I don't want to give too much of what I think Trump is doing away because it would alert the opposition. But I think behind the scenes, this kind of stuff that Trump would say, you go right ahead. It ain't going to matter one hill of beans. I don't care what you say about my appointees. They're my appointees, and if I want them in there, they're going to be there. When it comes to Trump appointing his team, the people are going to be doing the work that he wants done. He's going to have the people he wants in there. And it's going to be very telling who he puts in there. There's a name being bandied about for AG, by the way, you may not have heard. Let me run it by you very quickly. Chris Kobach. Name ring a bell, folks? For those of you in a certain state, I mean, I know you know who he is. Chris Kobach, Attorney General, Arizona. Chris Kobach, author and chief implementer of Arizona's immigration law that Obama filed suit to stop. He is an up-and-coming, rising conservative star. If he ends up being the AG, it will be good. It would be a great example of Trump getting the people he wants to do what he wants done, and that would be a telltale sign of what Trump wants done. I don't know if he's going to get it. Is a name. There's all kinds of names being bandied about right now. And so while it's Game of Thrones up there in Trump Tower, and wonder who Trump is in the Game of Thrones cast. Who is Trump? King Joffrey? No, who are they? I'm talking about who they would portray him as being. And who would be Peter Dinklage, the dwarf? Who would that be? Who would the media say is Peter Dinklage? We could have fun doing this. It reminds me of a little game we did called Gulf War I, casting our movie after the first Gulf War. Okay, let's get the audio sound bites. I'm not going to allow any other news to set this aside. This morning in Athens, Obama, joint press conference with Alexis Tsipras, who is the Greek prime minister, joint presser, and the first questions from the French news agency. A lot of people in Europe are still struggling to understand what happened, Mr. Obama, on November 8th. Does it have to do with leaders struggling to read the mood of the country? Do you have the feeling that while in power, you underestimated anger or resentment or fear in America?
Did I recognize that there was anger or frustration in the American population? Of course I did. First of all, we had to fight back from the worst recession since the Great Depression, and I can guarantee you if your housing values have crashed and you've lost most of your pension and you've lost your job, you're going to be pretty angry. I was also aware of it because of the fact that you've seen some of the rhetoric among Republican elected officials and activists and media, some of it pretty troubling and not necessarily connected to facts, but being used effectively to mobilize people.
So, can I translate this for you? Well, the Great Depression, that worst recession, it wasn't really nearly as bad as we made it out to be, but I succeeded in making people think that it was the worst that we've ever had, and I was doing everything I could to stop it. People did lose their homes, and they lost their pensions while I was president because I didn't know how to really come out of that recession because I don't understand capitalism. And all the while, there were people telling the truth about this. There were Republican media people. He didn't name them, but who does he mean, I wonder? There were elected officials and activists who were telling the truth about the damage my economic policies were doing, and that effectively mobilized people. I know you're thinking he said people lied. he did. But what he means is people were telling the truth about his leadership. And that's what offends him. Why I say, to understand these sound bites, folks, you have to understand this. Obama is like all self-absorbed people who in their own minds are great, unique and great. They live in a little cocoon that they create themselves, a bubble they create for themselves. They live inside it, and they're surrounded by people who also tell them how great they are and how dumb and how ineffective their opposition is and how insignificant everybody else is. And so whatever happens, it isn't your fault. You're the best guy ever. You're working harder than anybody, and you really got better ideas than anybody, and so it's really good what's happening out there. And it just people are too stupid to see it. So essentially you have somebody who I think, just being honest with you here, folks, I'm not trying to be provocative. I think we have somebody here that is not able intellectually or even emotionally to honestly assess what's going on around him. If it's negative, it's ignored or it's recast as a positive. If it's negative, it's somebody else's fault. But it usually isn't even negative. It's all good. But if people don't realize it's good, it's because the enemy is lying and is convincing people to believe the lies. And in Obama's mind, he's the center of the universe. I mean, he can't make a speech without mentioning himself at least 100 times, not exaggerating. And so I don't think he's come to grips with the fact that he lost the election. In fact, I know he hasn't because he's saying he wasn't on the ballot. This wasn't about him. Hillary lost it. She's to blame. Democrats, Republican media people lying about things, they're to blame. And that's why I think we're very, very dangerous 2 months here because the man still holds the levers of power. And that's as far as I'm going to go. I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to alert anybody. Here's the next bite where Obama says that he knows that people know that he did a great job and that none of this, including the election results, is his fault.
Obviously, President-elect Trump tapped into that particular strain within the Republican Party. Having said that, people seem to think I did a pretty good job. And so there is this mismatch, I think, between frustration and anger. Perhaps the view of the American people is that you just need to shake things up. Those folks who voted for the president-elect are better off than they were when I came into office, for the most part.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. Somebody who is just has the ability to ignore reality, will not allow himself to be contradicted by truthful outside events, cannot accept what has happened. In the midst of this, and this is an 8-year electoral disaster for the Democrat Party. I have detailed it every day since the election with even more detail today. Highlights. Democrats control 5 states, governor and state legislatures. It's actually 4 states. Democrats control 4 state legislatures and the governorship. 4 states. They've lost 11 House seats, 60 Senate seats, many mayoralties. They've lost 17 governorships or some such thing since Obama was elected. It has been an outright disaster. And yet, well, having people seem to think that I did a pretty good job. I did a good job. So the view of the American people, I just need to shake things up. See, it's a change election. It's not about him. It's not about policy. Just people want new faces. They want to see new direction. It's nothing serious here. But I want you to know that the people who voted for Trump, they are better off. I don't care what they think. They're better off now than they were when I came into office. And that's what he tells himself. This is dangerous. It's important, however, that he continue to think it. That's all I'm going to say. So I'm going to dial back. For all of our sakes, it's probably better that he continue to think this. Here's the next bite. No, I'm not worried about anybody telling him the truth. He thinks I lie anyway. So if somebody tells him what I said, he's not going to believe it. Folks, don't worry about it. Here's the next bite. Next question comes from Chris Jansing, the NBC White House co-respondent. Do you feel any responsibility for the election of Donald Trump? And in the broader context, when you see his election, when you look at politicians like Theresa May, Marie Le Pen, do you believe that it is either a movement away from or an outright rejection of your worldview?
It's fair to say that I was surprised by the election results, and I've said so. I still don't feel responsible for what the president-elect says or does. Since your question is directly related to the notion of a rejection of my worldview, last I checked, a pretty healthy majority of the American people agree with my worldview on a whole bunch of things. We know what happens when we start dividing ourselves along lines of race or religion or ethnicity. So my vision's right.
Says the number one divider in the country. The man responsible for these divisions getting wider just said, well, last I checked, pretty healthy majority of American people agree with me on a whole bunch of things. We start dividing ourselves. That's not what I'm for. It's utter. It is. I watched this with my mouth open, folks. This is going to be textbook stuff at psychiatry school someday. I watched it with my mouth. I keep inching closer. I've got to back off. Right, Dawn? I got to pull back here. Here's Obama. This was late yesterday at the White House, Wall Street Journal. As Democrats scramble to regroup after a pretty shocking upset, what's your advice about where the party goes now and who should lead your party?
I won Iowa not because the demographics dictated that I would win Iowa.
What?
It was because I spent 87 days going to every small town and
that's not
fair
what.
And
Stop this.
Fish fry.
Stop this. I got to go to a break. I've got to get a break in here. But that's not why he won. It's the right bite. Don't misunderstand. Just wait till you hear the rest of it. That's not why he won Iowa, folks. It's not. Okay, the question, Democrats scramble, shocking upset. What's your advice? Who's the leader of the party now?
And VFW Hall. And there were some counties where I might have lost, but maybe I lost by 20 points instead of 50 points.
Well, that's not true.
There's some counties maybe I won that people didn't expect because people had a chance to see and listen to you and get a sense of who you stood for and who you were fighting for.
I'm sorry. I thought he was throwing Hillary under the bus in that. Where does it? But he didn't. Look, I'm confused. Here, the thing about Iowa. The people forget. He's talking here about 2008. How he won Iowa. You know how he won Iowa? It's a caucus state. He bussed people in from all over the area. Everybody. The Clinton campaign was shell-shocked. They had no idea what hit them. But it was not an organic Iowa victory for Obama. But here he is. I won Iowa, not because of demographic, but now, wait, let me find the, I know that he described Hillary as lazy. Where is that? There's some counties maybe I won it because people had a chance to see and get sense of it. The question's not about Hillary, and his answer's not about Hillary, so I'm looking at the next one. Yeah. Right. Well, okay, so that's, I guess, what... Hillary... Did Hillary lose Iowa by 50? Hillary... Look, you guys can tell me he's talking about Hillary. He doesn't mention... I know he said that Hillary was lazy, and I don't see it in this bite. And I thought it was here. I'm looking at. There's two other bites here, so I'm scanning to look for the name Hillary in his answer, and I don't see it. Well, anyway, that's neither here nor there. The answer still is odd. I mean, the question: Democrats scramble to regroup after a shocking upset. What's your advice? Where the party goes and who should lead your party? And he talks about how he won Iowa 8 years ago. I mean, it makes my point here about the little bubble in the cocoon, about how all this is about. He knows this is about him, and he's trying to tell people why it shouldn't be, because in his mind it isn't. Anyway, let's do another brief obscene profit break. We'll be back after this. Don't go away. Okay, I have been brought up to speed. I'm sorry, my friends, but I'm not going to make any excuses for the way I interpreted this. Not to make a big deal about this, but here is the question asked by somebody from the Wall Street Journal. As Democrats scramble to regroup after a pretty shocking upset, what's your advice about where the party goes now and who should lead your party? Answer: I won Iowa. Not because the demographics dictated that I would win Iowa. It was because I spent 87 days going to every small town and fair and fish fry and VFW hall, and there were some counties where I might have lost, but maybe I lost by 20 points instead of 50. There's some counties maybe I won that people didn't expect, but because people had a chance to see you and listen to you and get a sense of who you stood for and who you were fighting for. And everybody's saying that that's throwing Hillary Clinton overboard. They're even, right now they're talking about it. They were during the break on CNN. Did Obama throw Hillary overboard? I heard that answer in an entirely different. If people hadn't told me he had thrown Hillary overboard, that's the last thing I would have thought he was talking about. Now, she wasn't in the question, and this answer is not connected to anything in the question. It's not what the Democrats, how they scramble to regroup. It's not about advice about where the party should go, and it's not about who should lead. His answer has nothing to do with this question, which is not uncommon. I mean, don't misunderstand. But you have to assume quite a lot here to believe he's trashing Hillary. Hey, if he's trashing Hillary, it's fine and dandy with me. I don't care. But I think the answer says more than that. I think this answer goes right to the thing I have been put. This question is really simple. What should the Democrats do going forward? And who should lead your party? And he goes back and tells the story about 2008. So, I know how to do it. I won. Here's how I did it in one state. I won Iowa, and I did this, and I did that. So we then infer that he disagrees with whoever, I guess that's how we get to Hillary, saying that he knows how to campaign and the Democrats of today don't. But he still makes it all about him. And he can't take himself outside of this bubble that he's in. What this also tells me is that in his mind, he is still a leader of the Democrat Party. There is nobody qualified anywhere near him to run this party. He's the only guy that's shown he knows how to win, the only guy shown he knows how to get where we're going, and he's going to be the continued leader of the party. I don't think he threw just Hillary over. I think he threw everybody overboard. If that's how you want to look at this, that he's throwing people overboard. He's throwing everybody overboard except him. I'm the only guy apparently knows how to win elections in this party, and here's why I did it. And so, you got to let people know who you are. And if they don't know who you are, you got to tell them who you are, like I do all the time. I don't know. Do we want to hear one more? Let's hear one more. See if we can connect the dots on this. White House correspondent Mark Knoller. How long did it take before you were at ease in the job?
The good news is that in some ways my experience is atypical. It's hard to find an analogous situation. By the time FDR came into office, the Depression had been going on for a couple of years. We were in the midst of a free fall. Financial system was locking up. The auto industry was about to go belly up. The housing market had entirely collapsed. So, one of the advantages that I had was that I was too busy to worry about how acclimated I was feeling in the job.
That's not what you were at. This is this guy. This is incredible. In the first place, this so-called recession, the worst since the Great Depression 2008, I don't care, folks. It wasn't. Do you realize there's still unspent TARP money out there? There's still unspent bailout money. And then after he got his stimulus bill for rebuilding roads and bridges, and there's not one bridge that got built. There's not one road that got that was already slated to get repairs. There wasn't any infrastructure rebuilding, and yet part of his press conference today, I saw this. I think people will very much appreciate and happy about all the infrastructure repair I have overseen as president. There hasn't been any. You know, the Democrats have lived off of this economic collapse narrative for 8 years now, and it's horse hockey. The truth of it is that there hasn't been a recovery from it. The truth of it is that with all the legislative things that have happened, like Obamacare and other economic policies, we are stagnant. There hasn't been a recovery. Whatever happened in 2008 has not been improved on. We have not been saved or rescued. That's yet to happen. And these guys running around saying they saved us, they staved off worldwide. That's establishment BS. That is establishment 101 BS. That is classic establishment. You go out there and you unify around a concept or a principle that things are falling apart and might disintegrate, except for us in the establishment. What an absolute crock. I have never bought. If you just listen to Obama, we're still suffering from what Bush did. It's the easiest excuse. It's the easiest cop-out for not having succeeded in anything regarding economic growth that I've ever seen. And it really does frost me. Hell, the recession that Reagan inherited in 1980 dwarfs this one. I mean, the thing that Reagan inherited when he became president in 1980, this doesn't even get close to touching it, how bad it was. World financial collapse. World financial collapse means if I have a house in the Hamptons, I might lose it. World financial collapse. And if there was a world financial collapse, who the hell gave it to us? These very people that set themselves up as our saviors and the people that can fix it. This has really been a sore spot for me for all these 8 years, is how supposedly bad that was and how Obama single-handedly rescued us from it. And it was all the Republicans doing, and it all happened because of the Iraq War. I have never accepted this, and I've always thought it was a weaponized bit of BS that they have used to excuse Obama's lack of economic policy progress and success. We haven't replaced these jobs that were lost. They keep talking about the unemployment rate being way down, record lows, and all. What a crap. Get this. Gallup just published Obama's latest job approval number. And you know what it is? 57%. It is a 4-year high. Barack Obama, frankly, I'm happy. I'm glad. If his approval number had come in under 50%, we would have a problem. But he can now continue to live this illusion that he's created for himself, that his greatness has saved America. Believe me, for the next 2 months, that's okay. But do you believe it? 57% approve. And I'm going to tell you something. There is one thing dangerous about it. And one of the reasons why I may not believe it. Look at how now the media could go to Trump or his transition team of the Republicans and say, hey, you guys better be careful about revising what Obama's done. Look at his job approval numbers. And if we have some cowardice in Washington on our side, oh, my God, look at his approval. Oh, my God, are we sure we want to shake this up? This job approval number is potentially dangerous if people look at it and use it as a substitute for the election return results. You see where I'm going with this, Mr. Snerdley? If on the one hand you have the Democrats decimated and practically non-existent, well, it's compared to where they were. They're a blip. But over here, you got Obama's job approval, 57%. And maybe your average Washington established a Republican. Wait a minute now. We really might want to rethink. And they're going to have to be told Obama's policies were sent packing. This is why I keep harping on it, folks, is why I led off every show since the election with how badly the Democrats have done in 4 consecutive elections. How badly the Democrat Party sits today. This is why I'm talking about it, because there are going to be people doing everything they can to cloud that, to obscure that, and make people think it's not true. Or that the Democrats were rejected not because of their policies, but for other reasons. When it was their policies, and Obama's specifically, that were repudiated. Brief timeout. El Rushbo continues after this. Biloxi, Mississippi next. Charlie. Charles, great to have you, sir. Hi.
Hi, Rush. It's an honor to speak with you today.
Thank you, sir.
I was calling in since this election cycle. I've kind of listened to your show quite a bit when I can, and I've heard you speak about your Rush Revere series. And American history has never been one of my strong suits. I've just never been excited by it. But I realize the fact that my son's in public school, and he might not get the version of history that I would want him to hear.
Very important.
Or they would have it as a slant, I guess I'm saying. So at any rate, over the weekend, I take my wife and my son out, and he's a big reader, and he knows that if he pushes for a book, old Dad will get it for him. So we're out at one of the chain bookstores, and I'm looking for your book, one of the Rush Revere series, and of course he comes up to me with the book that he's picked out, and I show him one of the Rush books, and he lights up. I wish you could have seen his face, and of course I'm asking him, where have you seen this book? How do you know about it? And his response to me was that his elementary school teacher in public schools is reading it to his class every afternoon.
No.
I thought that was just the wildest thing I've had.
Well, now, we know that that's happening because we hear from these teachers.
Right.
But
it's... A caller a couple of weeks ago, I believe, spoke to donating a book to a library, I believe it was.
Right.
And the library refused the donation. So I thought that was just the craziest thing I've ever heard. But he absolutely lit up. He put the book back that he had chosen for me to purchase the Rush Revere book. So I thought that was just the craziest thing I've heard, and I figured you might want to hear about it.
Well, I do. That is awesome. That is, what a way to end the busy broadcast day.
Oh, with the turmoil of the day and all you hear is negative in the news, I thought it was a glimmer of hope in our public school systems for us.
That really, well, let me tell you something about American history. I'm kind of like you. I didn't fully appreciate it when I was young and it was being taught to me because I didn't like school. And I thought all of it was force-fed stuff. And I had a natural resistance to being part of a giant group. 1,000 people being taught this, I don't want to learn it. I want to learn something different. It was my reaction to it. And it wasn't until I got much older that I realized how important history of the country was when it delved with my emerging interest in politics and so forth. So I'm glad that you've had it happen to you and your son today. It's just great. I can't thank you enough for that. Hang on here just a second. I want Mr. Snurder to get an address so we can send you and your son a package of things here. So don't go away. We had a caller I wanted to get to and didn't have time. Want to know if I thought that we have the backbone and patience to withstand all of the opposition headed our way just in the next 2 months. Okay, well, we'll deal with that tomorrow. See you then, folks.